What's up, world? This is Salim with Flip for Figs, and welcome to episode 14 in my figure matchup series. Today, we have an epic duel for the ages with Anakin Skywalker, the Artisan Edition from Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, versus Obi Wan Kenobi. This is the deluxe version, also from Revenge of the Sith. I'll be taking a look at sculpt and detail, accessories, and overall value for the money to see which figure has the high ground. Stay tuned to the end of this video to see what's next for my figure matchup series.
Flip for Figs.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.
Sculpt and detail wise, this figure looks really good. It does show its age. Obviously, it's an older Hot Toys figure. It was the first kind of young Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan we ever had. And with that said, I still think it's a strong head sculpt. Maybe not as strong as the Clone Wars Obi-Wan, and definitely not as strong as the one from the Obi Wan Kenobi series. But if you want Revenge of the Sith Obi, your options are really this one and the Clone Wars one. And I still think the Clone Wars one is stronger, and I was planning on picking up that one and swapping the heads, but then I saw that the neck joints weren't compatible without a little extra work, and I don't know how I feel about doing anything like that. I guess it's called kit bashing. Not really my cup of tea. But, you know, the tabards look really nice. It's the one thing that I don't like is the boots. They look like they're ready to fall apart, and in fact, mine are falling apart. You could see here that this little strap came undone, and I got the figure practically brand new, and I pulled it out of the box, and that's what was happening to it. So these boots, you know, they're pleather, but they're like papery pleather. I don't know what's going on here, but I don't like them at all. You know, the tabards aren't wired or anything like that. And then you do have a belt with some nice detailing there. Overall, sculpt and detail wise, I mean, it looks good and it works for Obi-Wan. Would I have gotten this figure if the new version of Obi-Wan had already been available? Probably not, but with that said, the sculpt and detail is still nice for such an old figure. Alrighty, sculpt and detail wise, I think the figure looks phenomenal. It looks very much like Hayden Christensen. I know some people felt like it didn't look as good as the prototype, which I can agree with. I mean, the prototype definitely looks more like Hayden, but I feel like the likeness is still there. It's definitely the most realistic action figure I have in my entire collection. And so, you know, it's also my first Artisan. The only other Hot Toys figure I have that has actual hair was Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy, and that was not like rooted Artisan hair. It was more like doll hair, but it's the only one that has like, you know, what appears to be real hair. And I thought the hair on that figure turned out pretty well, but this is my first Artisan, and frankly, I don't really see what's so special about it. Again, I don't have any other Artisans to compare it to, but, you know, I only bought this figure because there was no sculpted version available of the new, you know, version of Anakin. And so I probably wouldn't have gotten an Artisan just because I feel like sculpted will always look good and is not subject to like weather, humidity, or, you know, getting some faulty versions. So as far as the outfit's concerned, the tailoring is really great. I mean, the outfit fits him like a glove. The proportions are really accurate as well. It is a ton of pleather, which, you know, is disappointing, especially since with figures like Terminator, you get real leather. I'm hoping that with the sculpted version of Anakin, they end up moving to like a, I don't know, a nylon or something else other than pleather, because although I've never had pleather from Hot Toys fall apart yet, I obviously haven't had this figure long enough to see if it will. But I mean, there's a lot of pleather. There's the boots, there's the tabards, and everything like that. But despite all the pleather, I think it looks phenomenal. I mean, the sculpt and detail is just excellent. Anakin's taking sculpt and detail. Alrighty, for Anakin, this is everything you're going to get in the box. You get an unlit Anakin lightsaber hilt. You also get the swooshing effect Anakin blade. You get the unlit Dooku hilt with the standard blade and also swooshing effect blade. You get the mechanical arm. You also get some ungloved hands with like, force and force grab and a fist, and you also get some gloved hands here as well. And then you get the base as well as the light up lightsaber hilt. Alrighty, for Obi Wan Kenobi, this is everything you're gonna get in the box. So you get baby Luke Skywalker, which I don't think anybody asked for, but it's really nicely detailed. I think it's the only Hot Toys baby we have. Super cute. We also get the old style lightsaber light up arms. You get, all of these different hands for some force push, lightsaber holding hands, etc. My personal favorite accessory, which is these, battle droid clanker pieces that have been cut by the lightsaber. So you have a head, you have an arm that's still holding a blaster, and then you have this torso piece, which shows these really awesome details on the inside. I mean, these are accessories, right? This is exactly what you want when you get a deluxe Hot Toys figure. You also get the swooshing effect blade, and then you get his standard blade and lightsaber. You get the display base, which has this kind of nice texture on it, and you can also swap it out for this gravelly base, and then you get his hood. The hood, I think, does a really great job of transferring the dye on it to the body itself, and the Hot Toys, when they launched this figure, he came shipped with the hood on, and you could see some of the dye transferred onto it. Actually, the previous one I had was even worse, and the seller on eBay was kind enough to send me some new tabards. You can't really tell in this light, they look nice and clean, but upon closer inspection, you can see that the brown from the hood definitely transferred on there. So I wouldn't recommend putting the hood on him unless you maybe wash it first. I didn't want to do that, but I know some people did. And then you get this huge light up table, which is a hologram light table, and it has a Sidious hologram, which is just fantastic. And then it also has an Anakin, which is great. And this is a really amazing accessory, and it's a nice way to kind of show his allegiance to the dark side. When it comes to accessories, Obi-Wan has the high ground. Alrighty, folks, let's talk value for the money, or lack thereof in this figure's case. This is probably one of the most controversial Hot Toys releases of all time, and for good reason. Because it was limited, the price skyrocketed. So by the time I was seriously collecting Star Wars Hot Toys, this figure was already fetching around $800 or so on eBay. And to make matters worse, we had the Star Wars convention in Japan, which revealed another Artisan exclusive with even more limited quantities. And that was more like a dark side Anakin, but it actually ended up being from Ahsoka. And so I think the combination of both made it a frenzy on the internet, because this figure and the other one were both going for well over $1,000. Now, I remember when I started really looking at this figure and deciding whether to buy it, one thing really upset me right off the bat, and that was the fact that they only included one light up lightsaber hilt. On the box and on all of the promo photos, they show Anakin holding Dooku's lightsaber as well as his own, and they're both lit up. You cannot accomplish this look. How are you going to have it on the box but not put it inside the box? You know what I mean? It was just super ridiculous to me. So at the time, I was like, you know what? I'm sure they're going to announce a sculpted version soon, and I'm not going to buy it. Well, weeks turned into months. May the 4th came and went, and there was still no announcement of a sculpted version of this figure. And I got some eBay gift cards from work, and I decided, you know what? Let me go ahead and buy it. And when I bought it, I was nervous because I saw a lot of people having a lot of issues with the hair. So I crossed my fingers. And when the figure arrived, I was actually really impressed with the figure as well as with the hair itself. I thought my hair turned out pretty well. But the box was really, really thin. As you saw in our accessories portion, there's little to no accessories. You get hands, you get the robot arm, and then you get an unlit Dooku hilt and an unlit Anakin hilt and a light up Anakin hilt. And that's it. And you have the base, which doesn't light up. So I sat here wondering, what is deluxe about this figure? Because it's a deluxe artisan, right? There's nothing deluxe about it. In fact, it actually has fewer accessories than the average Hot Toys figure, including the other Anakin Skywalker from Attack of the Clones. That Anakin came with 2 light up lightsaber hilts. Even though it was a very, very brief scene in that movie where some random Jedi threw him a lightsaber and he had a blue and a green one for just a few seconds in that movie. And yet Hot Toys included both light up lightsaber hilts. And then you have this Anakin, who was the most anticipated Hot Toys figure probably of all time. And they want to represent one of his most iconic scenes in Revenge of the Sith, when he decided to take Dooku's life instead of arresting him. So super iconic scene, and you're going to put it in the promo photos, but you're not going to give us the light up lightsaber hilt? I just don't understand it. There is absolutely no good reason why, especially when you're going to call it a deluxe. It's not just an artisan, it's an artisan deluxe. There is nothing deluxe about this figure aside from the box. And so for me, even at retail price, the value is not there. Then you consider that in order to get this figure, you're paying double, if not more, than retail. It really depletes the value. To make matters worse, as of now, October 2025, they have now finally announced a sculpted version of Anakin from Revenge of the Sith. Why they decided to do it now and not back in May for May the 4th is beyond me. I'll never fully understand how they decided to announce figures like CEC Tin and, Cody 2.0 and Airborne Trooper before announcing a sculpted Anakin. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, they could have released a sculpted Anakin and still made it limited edition like they did with Cody or the Airborne Trooper, but at least have it be a sculpted version, because I, for one, would not have gotten the Artisan if I knew the sculpted one was really coming, but it just seemed like there was no hope for it anymore. Now, I will say that the face sculpt on the sculpted one looks a little like a different Anakin to me. It looks like Anakin from maybe the flashbacks in the Obi Wan Kenobi series or the Ahsoka series. It looks like an older Anakin, whereas this Anakin, I feel like resembles him from Revenge of the Sith, a more youthful Anakin Skywalker. So since I already have this one, and maybe it's just me trying to justify the fact that I don't need the sculpted one, I personally feel like the likeness here is more, but I would have preferred to have sculpted hair as opposed to artisan hair, just because I don't have any other artisan figures. And so, in terms of value, I can't recommend this figure, especially with the sculpted one on the way. Unless you really like artisan figures, then I don't see any reason why you would choose this one over the sculpted release. Unless, like I said, you really enjoy the face sculpt, which I do. But in terms of the price you're going to pay for it, it's just astronomical price for, like I said, very few accessories. If this figure had a Dooku light up lightsaber hilt, it would have been a lot easier to swallow. But even without the hilt, I mean, the base doesn't light up. There's no other accessories. There's no deluxe, Mustafar base, which they're including with the standard Anakin sculpted that's going to come out next year. That's not even a deluxe, and it comes with that droid base with the lava. This is a deluxe version, deluxe artisan. It's supposed to be their creme de la creme. We got no light up lightsaber base, no light up lightsaber hilt. We got no diorama base. So the value for the money is not there for this figure, not at retail and not on the aftermarket. Alrighty, let's talk value for the money. So this figure is a fantastic value, whether you're picking it up at retail or after the fact. Now, on the aftermarket, it's probably going to be between $400 and $500. I think originally it was between $320 and $380 maybe. And even that's a bargain, because this figure comes with a ton of stuff. I mean, it's a deluxe, and this is what a deluxe should come with. Like, not only are you getting this amazing hologram table that lights up with, the Sidious and the Anakin holograms, But you also get these battle droid pieces, which are full-on sculpts. And this is the closest we have to having a tan battle droid because Hot Toys hasn't released it yet. If all that wasn't enough, you also get a baby. A baby. Like, nobody needs a baby Luke Skywalker. Nobody who gets this figure is going to display Obi-Wan holding him long term. I mean, unless they had multiple. You want Obi-Wan holding a lightsaber and, beating up Anakin or somebody else. But they gave you a baby anyways. So this figure really embodies what it means to be a deluxe hot toy. Give us all these crazy deluxe accessories, the accessories that we want and accessories we don't need. That's what a deluxe should do. And Obi-Wan does it so well. Like I said, right now this is the only Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan. There was a new one teased in the photos for the new sculpted Anakin that's coming. So I anticipate that we will be getting a new Obi-Wan at some point in the near future. Maybe we'll get both a regular as well as an artisan, who knows. But there is a new Obi-Wan coming, and we can be pretty certain of that because they've teased it in the photos. And it's not this figure because the other one looks different and it also has a different base. But even so, where usually a new figure comes out and it kind of erases the previous one, but this figure will always be very special and iconic just because of the sheer amount of accessories that it comes with, and because it was, I think it was the first young Obi-Wan that we ever had from Hot Toys. And so, with all of that in mind, the value is there. I think it'll always be there, even when a new Obi Wan Kenobi comes out. And for the sake of this figure matchup, 110% value for the money Obi Wan is taking in. Alrighty, let's talk results because this was an epic matchup, but only one figure can take the high ground. Anakin got sculpt and detail, but Obi-Wan Kenobi won accessories as well as value for the money. So in this week's figure matchup, Obi-Wan Kenobi takes it.
On next episode of Figure Matchup.
Alrighty, folks. So you may have noticed that I didn't tease my next matchup this week. And that's because I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently with my figure matchup series moving forward. It will no longer be a weekly series and it'll no longer be a randomly generated matchup because some feedback that I've gotten and what I've noticed after using this random generation is that some of the matchups are just really uneven, like comparing a droid with no accessories compared to an accessory heavy figure. It makes for an uneven battle and some of them really don't make sense. And the views on and the click-through rates on those videos also, spoke volumes about what those matchups were like. And so, in order to keep the spirit of the matchups alive, I'll be doing curated matchups moving forward where I select two figures that make sense in a matchup against one another. I was actually inspired by this week's matchup because the wheel chose Obi-Wan and Anakin, and I figured, you know what? These matchups make more sense than random ones. And so the figure matchup series will also be incorporated into my Hot Toys reviews moving forward. So I will be doing new Hot Toys reviews as well as retro Hot Toys reviews from my existing collection. And at the end of each review, I'll have a mini figure matchup in there where I compare the figure that I'm reviewing against a figure that, could be an enemy of that character, where it makes a little bit more sense. And it'll keep the spirit of the figure matchup series alive, but they'll just be incorporated into my Hot Toys figure reviews moving forward. This is also because I can no longer commit to a weekly matchup. I'm a father of 3 young children. I work full-time and I'm getting my master's, which is also full-time. And so the weekly matchup series is just not feasible for me anymore. So with that said, I will go ahead and tease the next matchup because I am getting Princess Leia from The Empire Strikes Back in her Hoth outfit. And that's coming very soon. I'll be doing a full review on that. And at the end of that review will be a figure matchup between Princess Leia as well as Padme from Attack of the Clones. And so I think that'll be a fun matchup. And it's actually the real Anakin Skywalker 21 who suggested it. And so I think that this new format will allow me to do fun things like that. So thanks for sticking with me every week in this figure matchup series. And as always, I hope to see you next time.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.